Hey, woke up this morning to the fantastic news that we all kind of knew was going to happen, but it's always fantastic to hear it announced officially. Godin is an Inter player, finally signed on a free from Atletico, 3-year deal. Yeah, I don't know how valuable he's going to be for the 3 years, but what I know for sure is that Inter currently possess an amazing defense. It was pretty good anyway last year. De Vrij and Skriniar and the back four were outstanding, and I think Handanovic is for some reason or another managed to treat a lot of gaps in his game. So one can only imagine what Conte can do with the back three of Godin, Skriniar, and De Vrij. Possibly even there's rumors of him trying to keep Miranda to stay on just another season. So having Miranda and Godin reunite as they did in Atletico, having that factor of experience on the bench. Ranocchia, I imagine D'Ambrosio is going to start filling in more regularly as a central defender. So happy days, happy days. Which brings me to another point. We've heard, we haven't heard other news out of the first day of the Mercato is Napoli having activated the buyout clause and purchased Costas Manolas from Roma. And all indications are that it's Koulibaly who's not going to be sacrificed naturally. So these guys having a partnership, a world-class partnership at the back, aren't going to be trifled with either. So Manolas and Koulibaly, and then the Kingdom of Evil, Mordor, looking to finally wrap up the De Ligt transfer saga. So what do we have? What do we end up with? A top three of a defensive pairing of Chiellini and De Ligt, Juve. Defensive pairing of Koulibaly and Manolas for Napoli. And a defensive trio of De Vrij, Skriniar, and Godin for Inter. Jeez Louise. I mean, I struggle to think of a better European defensive partnership than any of those three, let alone having the three in the same league. Yeah, I mean, these guys are going to tear shit up in the Premiership next season. We'll see. But I mean, I think as an Interista, I'm probably very excited because historically Inter have relied on strong defenses to build on, to be the basis on which they build their success on. So having this defense, good stuff. Next thing I wanted to talk about was Barella. Disheartening. In my last video, I spoke about how much of a baller this guy was, and how much of a baller I think he still is. But a bit of a controversial opinion, and much like how my train of thought has gone on the whole Icardi fiasco. A lot of people have criticized Marotta and Ausilio for how they've handled Icardi, and I'm sure it might have been managed better somehow. They're not blameless, but by and large, one has to assess what the ultimate objective of the club is. A club, like any company, like any business, needs to assess every micro action that it takes as part of a comprehensive goal or a global strategy. You can't just look at a decision in a vacuum and say, in this particular instant, I'm going to do this because that seems to be the right thing, regardless of how contradictory or counterproductive it might be to the overall strategy of the business. And all from the day of the appointment of Marotta, actually from the day Suning took over, the goal seems to have become not only taking Inter back as a top 10 club globally and as a top competitor and a winner in Italy and hopefully Europe as well, but also redefining or re-engineering the way the club goes about its business. So, I mean, it's clear that a lot of the Inter DNA is going to be retained in passion. We've seen the highest attendance in Europe, in Italy, and the fifth highest attendance in the stadium in Europe. And that stems from the fact that at the core, it's always Pazza Inter, and the team uh, brings about an emotion in the supporters, an emotional connection in its supporters that is, I believe, quite different than the relationship between a Juventino and the club that they support, or Manchester United and a fan and the club. I really believe the relationship between Inter and its fans, us, is different, especially post 2010. I mean, older balding guys like me will remember the bleak years, the bleak decades, post Europa League, the original phenomenal Europa League until 2006, and then the 90s before that. Uh, but even the new fans that came in after 2010 and stuck, you gain a sense of appreciation of the club that is, and a relationship with the club that is probably possibly quite different. And the fact that Inter was and has always been such an international brand anyway, it's different to say the Napoli story of the relegation to Serie C, Serie C, and then the return back, or the Fiorentina story, because they are essentially at the heart local clubs that where whose fan base stems, for the most part, of course. I mean, there are international Napoli supporters, whether expatriated Italians or just fans of the history of the club or whatever. But I don't want to digress. But the international standing of Inter means that the fans that have gone through this depressing cycle of post 2010 and through today have a very different relationship with the club. And I feel like all indications with the way the club is communicating, they seem to value that and understand that and appreciate that. The Intermedia House videos, I mean, we saw the video of the Godin announcement today. I think that is probably one of the best freaking announcement videos. Last year's videos were pretty cool, but this was just was pretty badass. The challenge, if you want to know what it means to be Uruguayan, I'll have to come and show you on the pitch in Milano. Yeah, it's pretty badass. So, long story short, I feel like circling back to the Barella situation and the Icardi situation. If the objective of the management is to run Inter differently, rather than the impassioned way that Moratti had run the club, which, I mean, for better or for worse, made us all fall in love with the club. So we can only thank him for that. But if professionalism and respect and throwing your weight around are core values that the club wants to transmit to not only the fans but to other participants in the league, then you can't be dicked around. So if, in fact, as reports seem to indicate, Marotta had a gentleman's agreement with Cagliari about the purchase price of Barella, and then agreed terms with Barella, and then Cagliari went and reneged. Roma might be in to try and jack up the price. You know what? If you want to be a respected club, then you have to really, say, I'm not going to be, again, for lack of a better word, dicked around, and this is my final offer. You take it or leave it. And while it pains me, to potentially miss out on Barella, having seen how close we could have been to having the guy play for the Nerazzurri, I kind of also think that, as with Icardi, if you want to reconfigure the image and the philosophy and the way the club operates, all the players operate, you have to lead by example, and time will tell whether the decision was right or wrong in a vacuum. But I think I respect I respect the decision. Other news: Valentino Lazzaro from Hertha Berlin, the young Austrian winger, wide man, should be coming in for a medical today or tomorrow. Honestly, I haven't seen the guy play. Uh, I guess if he's got Conte's approval and blessing, then we'll play in good faith. We'll place in good faith. I just I don't know if anyone knows better, but I don't think I've seen a Bundesliga player come to the Serie A and do well recently. I don't know. We'll see. It's a position that we desperately need some attacking cover on. I mean, God forbid Candreva has to play there. Ambrosio, as I earlier mentioned, I believe will probably slot back as he's done on a bunch of occasions previously as a backup for the central defenders, which seems to be his forte really, especially in a 3-5-2. I don't think he's got. I mean, I don't think we all know he doesn't have the attacking skill to be able to carry the right flank attacking wise all by himself. So yeah, so I think we need offensive input and offensive injection on that right flank, and when it happens, when it's official, we'll say welcome Valentino and buona fortuna. Lastly, I just wanted to cap this video. I know I've been talking for a long time anyway, but I'm not excited about the league next season. It's I mean, we all started the league last season with high expectations, and unfortunately, it was a pretty weak showing by everyone. I mean, Juve thankfully were poor in Europe, dominant again at home. Napoli weren't able to launch an offensive on the title. Inter were far less competitive than I'd imagined them being. But I really think that this season is going to be interesting. Napoli's reinforcements, James when he finally signs, and Manolas already on board, just strengthen an already pretty damn good squad. All depends to see on who's going to be sacrificed to make back the money. And then, goddamn Juve, man, Rabiot, Ramsey, and possibly De Ligt. Awful. The only thing that I can say about Juve is that looking at their midfielders, and they have a whole bunch. Even if Matuidi does leave to Qatar or whatever, to Saudi, as reports seem to indicate he's going to do today, but they seem to lack that metronome in the midfield. There's a lot of strong players like Ramsey, like Rabiot, like Pjanic to a degree, but they're missing something there, and I don't know if Sarri can work around that. With his very rigid and inflexible system. Let's hope that they're the ones who end up conceding a bit of room to allow both Inter and Napoli finally to mount a legitimate, substantive offensive on the title. But yeah, so far the starting indicators seem to be that it's going to be a good league. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe. Ciao.